here. Hey everyone, welcome to the Houston Rockets off-season preview. We're going to talk about the Houston Rockets and potential moves that they can make this off-season. Talk a little bit about the trade or the draft, and look to see what is happening with them. Let's take a look here. Okay. So let's get into it. So Houston has the number 2 overall pick, which we'll get into in a minute, but I do want to address their cap situation up front here first. Let's go ahead and take a look at our cap sheet here. So Houston has, let's see here. Houston has John Wall making a whole lot of money. And Eric Gordon is also making a good chunk of money as well. So while Gordon's deal in 2023 and 24 is not guaranteed, that's still a big amount of money to bring on a guy who's as old as he is. I think a veteran team might make use of Gordon, but again, they're going to have to pay for him, right? So I don't really see a situation where Gordon lands in a spot where he is, super, the trade totally works out for Houston. I think Houston might have to attach a draft pick maybe to get rid of Eric Gordon's contract. Obviously, they have Christian Wood under contract. They signed him last year. He was kind of a breakout star for Houston last season. Kelly Olynyk came over in the Miami Heat Victor Oladipo trade. Played very solid for Houston. I don't expect him to be back. I can see him kind of trying to chase a little bit of money, and with Christian Wood, and also maybe the potential of signing or drafting Evan Mobley, I don't think Olynyk really sees his future in Houston. Dante Exum was a player that they had traded for during I believe it was the Jared Allen, James Harden deal. And look, Dante's had a hard time staying healthy in the NBA, so I don't know if really any team's going to be really looking to buy in on him. DJ Augustine, also on the roster. Potential wave candidate, but kind of just there. I don't expect Avery Bradley to come back. I don't believe we've heard any reports of Avery Bradley coming back from Houston because it is a team option. And then they have some other players. Kevin Porter's obviously under contract and should actually, I think, be considered for an extension at this point. But they had some good players last year come out. Jayshawn Tate, Kenyon Martin Jr. So this is a team that, again, they're just continuing to grow. Obviously devastated by the Houston Rockets deal of James Harden. So ultimately, I don't think that this team makes a earth-shattering move in the offseason. Personally, I'll kind of go into personal mode here. I believe that John Wall will likely accept his player option for next season when that time comes. However, I believe that I would do everything in my power to be able to get him off. But maybe they're fine with holding on to him because I don't know if Houston's going anywhere in the next 2 years anyway. Eric Gordon is also a player, like what was mentioned before. I think he could be traded, but again, a team's really going to have to have their deal sweetened with Houston. And again, that could contain a draft pick to take on his contract for the next 2 seasons. Ultimately, I think this team just builds on their youth. I think that they got to get better defensively, got to grow. I think Houston will just hold on to their young players. I don't really see too much from them. That's to a reason why they would offload all their young guys. But they own picks 2, 23, and 24 currently in the draft. So I think they'll probably use most of them, and they'll operate as a team that is over the cap. But the team will probably draft all three of these guys, bring them to camp, and they'll probably have some role during the season. Especially, I'm mostly specifically talking about 23, 24. Obviously, the number 2 pick will have a relatively big role. I believe if I'm Houston, I would like to take Jalen Green. I know that they have some guards on the roster already, but I just believe Green's floor is too high, and his ceiling is too high. So as good as Evan Mobley is, I wouldn't draft Evan Mobley because again, in my opinion, the draft, these 3 top guys of Evan Mobley, Jalen Green, and Cade Cunningham, all 3 of them are kind of in their own tier. And I would consider it 1A, 1B, 1C, and that being Cunningham, Jalen Green, and then Evan Mobley. So I can envision this team taking Mobley, but I also feel like Jalen Green is probably the best selection for them. So that being said, obviously they'll have the other picks to go and use as well. So we'll have to see that. But ultimately, look, I think the target for them should be to move off of Eric Gordon's contract. I think they could potentially get something from a playoff team that could help them, maybe a future pick, but it might take a pick. So that'll be an interesting situation to watch. There's nobody on this team that I feel married to, in the sense that, I have to keep them on my roster other than like Wood and Tate and Martin Jr. Like, I just don't really feel like there's anyone on the team that I'm like super tied to that we had to keep. That's kind of what they had the number 2 pick in the draft for. Like that's what they're going to use it for, and kind of go from there. But again, no specific signings. If there is a trade, be on the lookout for Houston to potentially move that Eric Gordon deal. I think that there are going to be teams that want some shooting, and we'll take a flyer on Eric Gordon. Is he a Knicks candidate because they need a little bit more offense? Is he a guy who wants to go to a contending team like a Lakers team? Does he land in Miami, right? Like there are teams with cap space that can absorb contracts, and depending on how free agency goes and if they strike out, they kind of might fall back on this option of Eric Gordon or whoever it may be. All right, so let's check some rumors real quick here for Houston. Let's see here. Kevin O'Connor of The Ringer. O'Connor reiterates that the Rockets continue to explore moving up to number 1, and says the Thunder have made efforts to trade up with Green, Cunningham, and Evan Mobley among their presumed targets. Okay, so this is interesting. There's a lot of talk about teams trying to move up to that number 1 spot. Detroit has taken these calls. I'm sure they fielded a lot of calls. We've heard Oklahoma City, like mentioned here, Houston. There are other teams that I believe want to move up to that number 1 spot, and they're selecting kind of, it sounds like Cade, but maybe even Mobley. Obviously, those 3 guys that were mentioned. So is there a trade that is able to get them over the hump? Now, is an Eric Gordon trade to Detroit an option? Detroit has a little bit of money. So I'll write that one down and see if we can even get that in a potential deal anywhere. So, but yeah, ultimately, the Rockets unfortunately are in a poor situation to where they're probably not going to be good for the next couple of years. However, what you do in that time, you stockpile on draft picks, you draft players that you believe can be franchise changing players, and kind of move forward from there. So ultimately, I do believe that the Rockets will draft Jalen Green, and after that, they'll go get some guys at the bottom of the second round as well. But if I'm a Rockets fan, I wouldn't expect to see much from them this offseason other than potentially moving that Aaron Gordon contract. And even then, it's easier said than done. So yeah, I'm going to write this one down, and we'll maybe do a stream doing kind of testing out videos or testing out trades on a live stream one day. But Eric Gordon to Detroit, that would net the Rockets like the first pick. I don't know if that works, but again, we're going to look at it because I don't see a package that Detroit can offer to Houston, or vice versa, that Houston can offer to Detroit that makes it so Detroit's like, okay, yeah, we'll trade down with you. Does Houston want to throw in another pick? Another interesting thing that we can pull up here just for the next moment here is that this is their pick situation moving forward. So they have Detroit's pick if they let's see here. They have their pick if it is 17 through 30. Then it goes to Houston. If it's in the lottery again, which it might be, then we'll wait till next year. But if you look here, in 2022, this team does not have their first round pick. I believe this is because it's going to Oklahoma City. But let me look here because I'm not 100% sure on that. So Oklahoma City in 24-26. Right to swap, it's 25 with Houston's 25. Interesting. So they actually might have their pick. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I just know that so many future picks of Houston's are going to other teams. They're going to Oklahoma City. They're going elsewhere. So if I am the Rockets, maybe it just makes it that much harder to trade Gordon. I'm not sure. But again, that is it for the Rocket stream. We're going to start another stream in just 2 minutes. And we are going to actually, when we start that next stream, I believe we are going to be talking about the Orlando Magic. So come on by. We're going to be doing 13 more of these and end our night. These are roughly about the bottom half of the league as record-wise, in a little bit of a mixed order. But yeah, we're going to talk about the Orlando Magic coming up here in just one moment. So we're going to end this stream, start a new one in just a second. We'll go from there.